Welcome to the Meaning Mindset with Rabbi Ron. I'm your host. I'm delighted to be your host. I'm Rabbi Ron Lee Paz. Today, my guest is joining us from the East Coast. It's often a wonder where she is one day at a time because every few days or weeks she is traveling to another point on the globe. It is American opera superstar Angel Blue with the voice of an angel. Angel Joy Blue, her parents named her well. She's a delight. Her insights into her own spirituality, her journey, the influence of her father among other great mentors, her mother among other great mentors in her life, the work that she's doing right now. Angel is one of the most in-demand singers in the world, and just go on anywhere online, whether it's Spotify or YouTube, or log into the Metropolitan Opera in HD, and you'll see plenty of examples of why this young singer is singing in all of the major opera houses all over the world. Let's get straight to my conversation with Angel Blue. Angel, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much. I have some idea of what your life is and the busyness of it and the travel and commitment. So this really means a lot to me that you're dedicating an hour to this conversation.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. My wife and I, who are, we're just kind of opera obsessed. We were talking about the voices. First of all, the signature of a voice that we know within 4 bars who that is. Usually I'll stop a recording and say, who is that, when we're listening to XM? And we go, that's, and we'll, usually nail it. And yours is certainly one of them. You have that unique quality, that stamp of you that's unique to you. And the other thing we were talking about the other day was, actually yesterday, the voices, particularly live, that bring tears to your eyes for no understandable reason. Just the sound of a voice, the warmth. And both of us talked about you as having that quality. So it's the highest compliment, just not only your artistry, but the gift, the beauty of your sound. And one of my favorite quotes, actually, little mini recordings that I'm sure you've seen thousands of times of Leontine Price, is when she talks about having been blessed with her beautiful voice. And I just thought, yeah, that's an amazing way to look at the gift of voice rather than just the work that we put into it. But what she realizes is, I get to hold this within me. I get to share this with the world. I want to just reference something, and I don't want to make you exhausted by it, but I just want to read for other people your season, just for people to get an idea of what you do and where it takes you. So this is just since September, and there may have been changes, but we'll ignore that for now. So this is BBC Prom. So you're in London. This is September 14th. I know it's not only a day. And then you're at the Met middle of October, beginning of November, and then Beethoven's Ninth in Houston, and then Aida at the Met in December, then in February. So that took you through almost all of January. And then you're in Munich for La Boheme, and then you're with Lang Lang for a recital at Carnegie Hall in March, and then Los Angeles, where you just were for an extraordinary concert. Then you're with the Met Orchestra. You're in Rotterdam in March 21st, and then March 22nd in Cologne, March 23rd in Paris, April 2nd, Sony Hall in New York, honoring Denise Graves. Then you're at Washington for Louisa Miller. And then you're at the Met for Aida in April. And then you're with Brian Waghorn for the Union Club of New York recital, still in New York. Then in Baltimore for Aida in June. And then 3 days later, you're at the Met, actually in concert, Carnegie Hall. Then in June, Traviata in Verona, north of Italy. So just think about the time and travel and jet lag and outfits and suitcases and all that goes with travel. And then you're in Denmark, and then back to Verona. So I just want to ask you how people don't understand it. How do you live that life? That isn't just one season in your life. That's a version of many seasons, maybe all the seasons of your professional life. How did you ramp up into that? And was it easy? I know there are people who are really attuned to travel in a way that others aren't. How did that life emerge, and how do you stay sane in it?
Well, I've been traveling my entire life.
Mm.
My dad was a pastor, and I would actually say that he was an evangelist. And so we traveled. We had a motorhome, and we went from California all across the United States up to Canada, and actually all around Canada as well. So traveling has just always been a part of my life. I've always been I feel like I don't have to get acclimated to travel because it has been something that's just been there. I think it really started though. Of course, that was my introduction to it with my family, traveling because of my dad's ministry, but also my high school was in Los Angeles, and the high school I went to was the LA County High School for the Arts, and it was 2 hours away from where I lived in Apple Valley,
Oh,
California.
sure.
So I had to figure it out. I was 3 hours going, or sorry, it was a 4 hour trip all total in the day. So I think that really prepared me for what I do today, which is traveling is a massive part of what I do. And I can't take it really out of the equation. It is something that will always be there. And I accept that.
Yeah. I found it when I was singing opera. I found that travel was exciting. I'd always be excited by where I was going. And in between rehearsals, performances, the time I'd get to spend in interesting cities, it was also challenging for me. And the challenge for me was what I was leaving behind. So it was kind of cost benefit. What about you in terms of, I clearly want to ask about your dad, but I don't want to go there yet.
Yes.
A huge figure in your life, clearly your parents.
Yes.
What about the life? How do you stay centered? How do you stay healthy? How do you stay mentally healthy with the life and the demands of the life and the career?
I think, I'm a really strong believer. I have a very strong faith in God. And so, I think everybody knows that now. I've said it in enough interviews well, not everybody, but anybody who's listened to an interview, I think would know that my faith is my foundation. And it's easy to be driven mad by a schedule that is grueling, by people who are difficult.
Hmm.
And not everyone is difficult, but for sure it's entertainment. So of course we'll run into that, in life. We run into difficult situations all of the time. But I stand very strongly on my faith. And if I didn't have that, I don't believe I'd be able to do the job at all.
You know, I'm a rabbi.
Yes.
What explain faith? Because I think there are people who claim they have faith. There are people who claim they don't have faith. There are people who struggle somewhere in between. Is it a choice for you? Is it something that's so inculcated in you, so in your blood because of your parents, your upbringing, that it's just part and parcel of who you are? Or is it something you have to work for?
I think faith is, I'm thankful that my parents introduced me to their faith, to God, really, when I was a little girl. But I don't believe that faith is, I don't think it's something you have to, I don't know, working for it. I don't know what that means. So I can't explain that. For me, it's something that, it's a gift from God. And I think that it's, when I think of my career, when I think of singing, I believe that God has given me the gift to sing. I get to
Mm.
choose how I want to use it. I get to choose if I want to take the gift and just make it all about me and make it all about, well, I'm so great. Look at me. I've traveled to all these countries. I actually have right here. I put this on my piano to remind myself this is my passport, one of my older passports. And I put it there to remind me of how many countries I've been to, how much I travel.
Mm.
And the faith that I have is that God is always with me when I travel. I'm not, people say like, how do you keep your voice going? Or how do you stay healthy? How do you, this, that, the other. And I really believe it's not me, it's God, and he helps me. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
That's always been there for me. I do get that from my parents, but I have my own relationship with the Lord. I
Mm.
have my own, I have something special with him. And that keeps me going. And I love it. It makes me so excited when I think about it, because I know that I do all the natural stuff. I do the practicing. I go to my coachings. I have voice lessons. I talk to my colleagues, my conductor friends, and all of that about the music so I can study and learn. But God does everything else. So the tears and stuff that people feel, that's not because of me. That's something I believe that He does. He does for me. I don't know if that's too deep, but that's my take on it.
Not for me. Yeah, I love that. Angel, I'll call it the God component. What's the spiritual component for you of stepping onto the stage in front of an audience at the Met singing, let's say, Aida, something current?
Yes, there's a video of Leontine Price, and she's standing backstage in the wings at the Metropolitan Opera. And she said that, I don't know that she says that she's nervous, but I know that she's anticipating her performance. And she says that she looked up and she just said, well, I think she says, well, Jesus, you brought me here, so you have to get me through this, or something like that, to that effect. And I think the spiritual component of stepping on stage is, for me, is essentially the same thing that she says, which is, I did my part. I did the work because we are required. I do believe that we are required to do something. It's like trying to lose weight or build muscle. You have to do the things that go with that. So if I'm trying to build muscle, I can't have an unhealthy diet and go to the gym and think that I'm going to have this great physique. It doesn't work that way. The harder part of that, because going to the gym and working out, and that is actually probably easier than it is to have a clean diet,
Yeah,
so
I
when it comes to singing, I sort of see it that way as well, where it's like, okay, I've done everything that I was supposed to do. I learned the music. I was in the rehearsals, all of that. So the spiritual aspect of it is now essentially, God, please honor my work. Please honor the work of my hands. Honor what I did. I did all this. Help me take care of the rest of it. Take care of the audience enjoying it, and also take care of me. Let me enjoy it too, because it's so easy to get caught up. And I think I was actually caught up in this. I call it the vortex of fear. I was caught up in this place where I was just always so nervous to sing, and always, I wanted to be perfect with everything. And that doesn't exist. It doesn't. There's such a thing as perfection of sincerity, of wanting to, I do believe that. And I believe actually I have that when it comes to singing and music, but the actual idea of being perfect in music, singing, it doesn't happen. So spiritually, stepping on stage to sing Aida is essentially just me saying, okay, Lord, I did everything I could do. Take care of everything else for me, please. And He always,
that's
and you know
beautiful.
what, Rabbi, I have to tell you, He always does. Sometimes it's not the way that I want it to be, but He always does.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because I work with kids a lot, as you'd imagine, as your dad, I'm sure, did as well. And one of the things I see is when I am with a kid before bar mitzvah, so they're turning 13 and they're nervous, I always ask them, what are you concerned about? What's making you nervous? And they always have almost to the same word, the same answer. I'm afraid of messing up, right?
Oh.
And I think about one of the things that I said to a boy yesterday is, nobody's coming here to see how you do. Everybody's coming because they love you. We get to be present in this hour of your life. So it's just a different dynamic. It isn't, are you going to make or miss that shot to the basket? It's just, this isn't a sport. This is about a sacred hour of life. We get to be a part of this. Nobody's coming with a note paper to say, he said this and not that. It doesn't matter. Come prepared, come thoughtful, come present. The rest takes care of itself. And then I had a group of kids the other day here, and I was saying to them after bar mitzvah, I said, what did you guys learn about nerves? And they said, or mistakes. Because I think mistakes is one of the things that I get to teach. They're going to make mistakes their whole lives. My notion is that's why we have knees. We're stumblers, and we just need to learn how to get up again. And I think all of them, every kid here in that group said, oh yeah, they didn't matter. We were prepared. So I think that's true as well. We come, we bring our best to a given moment, as you said, and trust, have faith. I remember somebody saying to me when I was still performing, when I was nervous in the wings in England, I remember. And she said, "How are you doing?" I said, "Nervous." And she said, "They want you to succeed." And I thought, oh, yeah, the audience didn't come to see you fail. It's not a tightrope walk. It's not gladiators. They want you to, they paid ticket prices because they want to see you succeed. So that was helpful to me as well. Another thing that I think is powerful in performance, and I don't know how this resonates with you, is not pleading, please give me, but thank you, God, I get to do this.
Yes.
What a gift. Back to us not being gladiators, right?
Right.
So who have been your spiritual teachers? Clearly your dad. I'd love to know more about that, about your dad and the role he's played in your life, continues to play in your life.
Yes.
And your mom as well.
Yes. They were, my dad was, you would have loved him. He loved people. He was just so friendly and kind. And I think that the reason as I've gotten older, I think about just his smile and how genuinely happy he was, but it was past happiness. It was joyful. And it was a state of being for him, just this constant feeling of joy in life. And, I'm so happy to speak with you because I don't often get to share with people how I grew up. And when I do, I have shared with some people and I backed away from it, because I understand that it can be off-putting to people to know that I was raised as a Christian, but my dad studied Hebrew. And he wanted to have a deeper understanding of why, like he would always say, Angel, it's okay to ask why. And you should always be able to ask why. And I said, okay, he said, always ask questions. And so he really started studying. I was probably 10 years old when my dad started studying Hebrew. And he just went all in. Just all in, just really, really hardcore into it. And the way that studying Hebrew, reading the Torah and reading the Tanakh and all of that opened up his world of his understanding, his faith. It blessed all of us, and it made all of us just, really want to understand more about why we believe what we believe. It's great to believe, to have a strong understanding, or maybe not understanding, but it's great to have a strong faith. But it's even better to know why you think these things and why we believe these things. And my father always he just always shared that with us. He was always quoting he would quote from the Torah, he'd read from the Torah. So we went to, basically, the way I grew up was that Friday night was like today, Shabbat Shalom, by the way, today we celebrated Shabbat. Yes, we celebrated Shabbat. I get excited. These are beautiful memories for me. We celebrated Shabbat on Friday night, and my mom would light a candle, we'd pray, and then we would play music. So it wasn't like a real, we weren't entirely resting. But for us, that was our rest, that we would play and be together. I'd be on the bass, my brother's on the drums, my mom's playing piano, my sister and my dad were singing. Sometimes my dad would grab his guitar and he'd play. That was our Friday night. Our Saturday morning was, we went to a Messianic synagogue. So it is, we definitely included the fact that we're Christian, and I do believe that Jesus Christ I believe he's God. But I'm thankful because salvation comes through him, through the Jews. That's what I was raised to believe. I hope that doesn't offend anyone. That's just,
no, well, I hope not as well.
I hope not. But that's just what I believe. That's my belief.
Sure.
But on Saturday morning, we went to this synagogue. It was called, excuse my Hebrew, Mishpachat HaNesharim, so family of eagles, I believe. Yes, Mishpachat HaNesharim.
Wow. Interesting name.
I'm sorry?
Interesting name.
Yeah, interesting. They were interesting people too. They were fun people. It was just a wonderful way to spend Saturday morning. My dad was their cantor. And, so he, of course, because he was studying Hebrew and everything, I learned a lot from him in that. But then on Sundays, we'd go to church. So that was my weekend when I growing up. And wow. I'm so thankful that my parents raised me like that. I'm so thankful that they showed that kind of tenacity and interest in faith. I can't, there's, I can't, my parents didn't have money. We didn't have, I didn't grow up having everything I wanted and all of that. They didn't have money. They didn't have, I shouldn't say we didn't have money. I would say we weren't rich or wealthy, but they were so, and thank God my mom is still here. So I speak of my dad in the past tense because he's passed away, but my parents cared so much for the family connection, for our faith connection, and to make sure that we, the Bible says, I believe it's in the Old Testament actually, where it says, train up a child in the ways of me so that he will not depart from them. And that my parents did that. I'm in a new decade in my life, and I'm like, wow, they did that, but they did more than that in the fact that they lived their life. People say practice what you preach, but my dad preached what he practiced. And so the man that I saw on Saturday morning and Sunday morning was the same person I saw all week. He never changed. He was always the same. The mom that I saw, the woman that I saw helping out Saturday for after the we called it Shabbat, after Shabbat service, that's the woman helping. She made this challah bread and stuff. That's the same woman that she was on Sunday when she made the beef stew after church. She was the same woman throughout the week. And I appreciate them so much. I wish I could say thank you to my dad for that.
You just
I believe
did.
He knows.
Sure you do. Yeah.
But I just, the way that I was raised was, invaluable.
Yeah. My cheeks hurt a little from smiling. I'm just so moved by you and your sincerity and your commitment to living the better life. And I don't mean better than somebody else, just trying to be a striver. And I think that's what we should all be in our lives, in our personal lives, in our character. And then that extends to our work, whatever our work is, our art that we put out into the world, if that's what we do. You said earlier about your dad being more than happy. I think I know what you mean, joyful. I think what you're saying is, and tell me if I'm wrong, that it came from the inside. His happiness wasn't dependent on what happened to him in the day, whether he stubbed his toe or not, whether it was sunny or cloudy. He had that within him.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. Yes.
Yeah. And what about your mom? You say she's alive and well, God willing. How's she doing?
Yes. Thank you.
And
yes,
what's that role in her life and in your life?
In my life, she's been it's so funny because I always talk about my dad and singing and how he studied and everything, his ministry. But my mom is the world's greatest cheerleader. I think she'll get a kick out of me calling her that. I don't know of anybody, I believe I shouldn't say only, but I'm a stepmom and I want the best for my stepson. I want the absolute best for him. And my mom was, or is still to me, the one person in my life who is constantly cheering me on, constantly rooting for me, and always praying for me. And even just the other day, I was telling her when I came home, I think she was a little worried when I went on this tour because I had been traveling so much. And so she did say, when are you going to take a break? Or what are you going to do on your break? Because she's concerned. And on the phone, she said, make sure you take care of yourself. Just make sure you take care of yourself. Make sure you're eating well. Make sure you're sleeping. I don't have the best relationship with sleep. Sleep and I are trying to become more acquainted with each other.
Is
better
that
acquainted.
In your adulthood always?
I'm sorry?
Was that always the case or in your adulthood?
It's only been since I've been traveling. It's so I have I don't have like a clock that really comes on and says, okay, it's time to go to sleep now. It's it's difficult. It's been a battle to try to actually fall asleep. Like when my husband goes to sleep, I'm usually still very wide awake. But my mom talks to me about those kinds of things, and she's just always making sure that I'm taking care of myself. I'm her youngest daughter, so I think that I think that plays a lot into it also. And I'm a lot like her, so she knows that means that I am always, or not always, but I do often look after other people, and sometimes can neglect looking after myself. So I'm aware of that, and she helps me with that. She was a musician herself. Right now, she plays. She's relearning piano, as she says it. That's how she calls it, and she just started learning the guitar.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're all very musically inclined in my family.
Yeah, your sister too, right? Your sisters
Yes,
as well. Yeah.
yes, my sister sings. She has a beautiful voice, and I always tell her, just sing through the house. Just keep singing. Try to sing every day. And she's like, oh no, it's gone. It's gone. It's not gone. She just doesn't sing as often as she should. But I've been blessed, Rabbi, with a beautiful family. I've been blessed with people around me who are encouraging to me, but I'm also encouraging to them. I try to reciprocate that to them. But God has really, really put me in a great position with beautiful people in my life to help to keep me going, because it is difficult at times to find the motivation and the excitement in the work, especially when I'm exhausted or tired.
Yeah. I have a question. At your level of this profession, which is the top rank,
Thank you.
what does life look like in terms of audiences see performance on stage and then the curtain goes down after the bows? What happens next for you? What's life like around performances?
So what's life like when I'm not performing?
When you're not on stage and people don't see you in your gorgeous gown, and as the little kids on that TV show said, "Are you wearing a wig?" I mean, that side of you that's on stage. What happens next around those moments and those hours?
Always, I would say, I think personally, I lead a very boring life. I'm just I'm normal. I have a beautiful husband who's very supportive and wonderful. He has a beautiful career. He's a software developer. I think I said that right. Computer program. And I have raised my stepson for the last 10 years. This year is 10 years. And I enjoy spending time with my family. My day-to-day life is just very calm. And it's probably, I would say, the exact opposite of what it is to do an opera. And I love that. I absolutely love that. I believe that if I didn't sing ever again, I would be okay with where I am in my life, because I'm surrounded by so much love.
So what do you mean by the contrast with that in opera? You describe your life as boring. I get that there's probably a certain stability to it and maybe a quiet. How do you
Yes.
connect that to what happens on stage? What's the seam between those two?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. Maybe I don't understand the question.
Yeah, maybe I don't either. I'm just thinking about, you said something that was interesting. You said it's the opposite of opera. What does that mean?
Okay, so I mean like the glamour of the spectacle of opera. So,
Yeah.
going in, I'm thinking very specifically of singing at the Metropolitan Opera, where I go to the Met, I get dropped off at the stage door, I take my pass, and then, the security's like, "Oh, hi, Angel," walk through. And then from the moment I'm there until the moment I leave, people are waiting on me. Everyone is helping me. Everybody's asking me if I need anything. I have a beautiful wardrobe costume dresser named Susie, who's just constantly, "Do you need water? Do you want more water? Do you need any tea? Are you okay? I heard a thump. What was that? Angel, did you fall?" That kind of thing. And then my makeup artist, Heath, the same thing, just checking on me. I'll start sweating during the show, or before the show sometimes because I'm nervous, and he's dabbing my sweat away. And, the gentlemen backstage are asking me, if I need anything, if I'm okay. Oh, we're going to change the set. Angel, just wait. They'll hold my arm. And then when it's time to walk across the stage, they'll turn on a light and they'll say, watch your step. It's wildly different than that, because that's my job. That's my job. It's different. When I come home, maybe it's that I turn into all of those people at home, where I'm the one asking, are you okay? Waking up my stepson in the morning. Okay, honey, it's time to get up. Let's go to school. Do you have your clothes? Do you have, honey, my husband, hey, you have a doctor's appointment today. Don't forget. So I think that's it completely changes, but I love that. I really do, because it's real life. I get to come home and have a real life. I have 2 dogs. They're Ella and Cindy. They're both Chihuahuas. They're beautiful Chihuahuas. They're not mean spirited. I had a Chihuahua when I was little, and she was so mean spirited. She was rough. But our dogs they're lovely and sweet, and they always want to be around us. And just it's funny because I had a friend say to me, this was a long time ago when I first started singing, she and I, we lead very different lives, but she said that she didn't like the monotony of life. And that, for whatever reason, always stuck with me. And I thought, that's interesting, because I enjoy that a lot. And that, I think that's probably the best way to describe my life off stage.
Yeah, it sounds like contrasts matter to you, and you get to live that athletic life on stage, and, as you say, glamorous and high heart rate, high stakes, and then you just want to be in your jeans and be comfortable and do the things you need to do, and maybe in some ways get back to the spirit of life, which is to care for others.
Yes, absolutely.
And to be invested in other people's lives.
Yes. It's wonderful to care for other people.
It certainly is. When you come into a rehearsal process, let's say you go across the world, you go to Munich to do a production, and you haven't sung that role with that director, that production, how long are you in that city?
If it's a new production, it can be anywhere from probably 4 to 6 weeks of rehearsal, and then we perform. So I could say probably the longest contract I've ever had, I believe, was 2.5 months. And it was a new production, and it was a grueling task because because the rehearsal process was so long, and we actually finished staging everything we had about 2 weeks left. And that's hard. That's a difficult thing. But when I've done, if it's a production that's a revival, then usually it's a very short rehearsal period, usually only 1 week, maybe even less.
Is that just for you and other principals, or is that for everybody?
It's just usually for me and other principals, yes. Because if
so
the
they'll
choir
fly
has
you
done
in,
it,
walk you through the blocking, and you have a couple rehearsals with the conductor at the piano, then go to the Sitzprobe, maybe? Is that right?
Yes.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I assume that. Otherwise, you couldn't be in all the places that you need to be. And I think you probably, again, are working at such a level that you're able to take in the details, know where you need to be, know what the concept of the production is. What about working with different conductors? One of the questions I remember, again, this is in my brief, about 10-year singing career in opera. I remember sitting on the side of the pit in Italy with an English conductor, Richard Hickox. I don't know if you remember that name. And I said to him, because we had a lovely relationship, I said, what makes a great conductor? And he said, it doesn't happen. One thing he said to me is, well, we know that. I said, when I listen to a recording of Beethoven's Ninth, and it's Bernstein or this one or that one, I said, what are you listening for? He said, well, I'm listening for what he does with the strings in that bar, and the way he paces that moment. So all these different issues. I said, what about us? One thing he said to me, and one of his mentors was Pierre Boulez, I believe. Wow. He said, I said, what happens when you lose us? There's the principals, and there's a chorus. There's so many bodies on that stage and a huge orchestra. This was Strauss. I said, what happens when you feel like, if it happens that you're losing us? I said, do you get larger in your gestures? He said, no, Boulez, I believe it was, taught me get smaller. He said, get smaller and everybody's attention will be drawn in. I thought that was a great life lesson, by the way. Don't shout, whisper. And then the other thing I asked him, I said, what makes a great opera conductor? Or do we get that on the night? He said, it's the rehearsals. He said, it's not what happens on the stage on the night. That's when you're repeating what you planned. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that? Do you relate to that?
I can, actually. I think some of my, unfortunately, I think some of my best singing has been done in rehearsal, actually. Sometimes some of my most prominent, I would say, moments of acting moments have happened in rehearsal, but it's not a bad thing. It wasn't in performance, but it's just that it was because we were experimenting. And I think that's why rehearsal is so important, because we can experiment there. We can decide, oh, am I going to sing the high note at the end, or do I just want to stay, a fifth or whatever the note is down? Am I okay to try? How far is this aria going to make me go emotionally? Am I going to cry during it? Am I going to not cry? What's going to happen? I think those are probably some of the most important facets leading up to the performance. And of course, he's absolutely right that we're repeating what we practice. However, for me, that's a little different, because I do become more aware that now I'm sharing what I've practiced with the audience. Mm. And having the audience there sometimes can take me further than what I did in rehearsal. I never give less. I almost always give more when I'm in performance. So I think that's probably the biggest difference.
Yeah. What about vulnerability, which is such a facet of you and your life and you as a singer? What does that mean on stage?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I suppose I'm so thankful to have my job. I'm so thankful to be a professional opera singer. I think that comes out when I'm performing. And some might say, well, that has nothing to do with the music, but it actually does. It has everything to do with it. Because we can, one of the girls in the Hi-Ho Kids video, there was a young lady who asked me, and I'm sorry for my lighting, I don't know what has happened. I think the sun has gone away. But in the Hi-Ho Kids video, one of the young ladies said, how did you make it as an opera singer? She says something to the effect of, because you can practice and practice and practice and never
I know, that was amazing. Yeah, I remember that.
That question totally stumped me, because it's true. One can practice over and over and over again. And I know so many people, and I actually mean so many people, who have had the goal, the dream of becoming a professional opera singer, and they're excellent musicians and they're excellent singers, and they have no work. And I'm the opposite end of the spectrum, where I have so much work that I have to actually look at my calendar and say, okay, I'm taking a break from this date to this date. And I think that's, in my heart, that is vulnerability, because I'm thankful for that. I don't take it for granted. I know that, and I also know that it could be here today and completely gone tomorrow. So every time I step on stage, I thank God, Rabbi, I thank him so much for letting me do this job, for giving me the gift to sing. And I get to share that with people. I'm not the most articulate or eloquent person, but I know that when I sing, I'm giving a part of me, a little bit of me to the world, which is amazing, because really, where did it go? Because the world has given a little bit of them to me. Yeah. And in a way, I get to give that back, and I'm thankful for that. It's such a blessing to me.
Mm. You hold a passport, U.S. passport, and I think of you as an American citizen of the world, very much of the world.
Thank you.
Is that a responsibility?
Oh, yes. Yes. But there's what is it? It's tikkun olam, right? To make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And I think that's the responsibility I have, is if ever my singing can help, me performing can help the world be a better place, then I hope it does that. I hope it encourages someone. I came out of the stage door in Munich, that was February that I was in Munich, and this older German woman was standing there, and she couldn't have been. I'm tall. I'm 5'11.5". My friends say, "Just say you're 6 feet, Angel." I said, "No, because I'm not 6 feet. I'm 5'11.5". But this lady came up to me, and she couldn't have been any taller than probably 5 feet, 5'1". And she looked at me and she said, Your voice touched my soul." And then she told me that her husband had just passed, and that they had made plans to go to the opera together, but he would have wanted her to go even if he couldn't go. And she said, "Thank you for lifting my spirits." I think that's the responsibility. It's everyone's spirits won't be lifted by me singing. Everyone's spirits won't be lifted by me being around them or talking to them. I understand that. But just for her, that was my little bit of tikkun olam in Munich. Just a tiny bit,
Yeah. Yeah. I had a guest recently who was a sports interviewer, world renowned, 5,000 interviews of the greatest athletes. And I asked him first of all, what was your first interview? He said, Muhammad Ali.
Oof.
And I said, what did you learn from Muhammad Ali that you still take into your life today? He said, uplift. He said, that's what I got. He said, he kept talking about the imperative. It wasn't about the boxing. Yeah, he knew how good he was, and he knew how practiced and trained he was, how capable he was. He always talked about it. But he said, uplift another person. That's what we're here for. And I think that's your life as well. And as you say, it may not be 3,000 at a time, but if one person left that theater changed, moved, more able, strengthened because of your voice and I don't think it's just your voice. I think it's your artistry. That's the beauty of the arts. Then the world is a little more perfected.
Yes.
Yeah, I think people often wonder that. And I certainly, in retrospect, I didn't have that awareness when I was working as a singer, that there was a generosity of spirit to it, that there was somehow that the art form had more meaning than just beauty. And what I get as I mature from the arts is how much it changes who we are, how much it broadens our perspective, not just brings light where there's a lot of darkness, and there always is in people's lives and in the world, but really gets you more toward your dad's outlook, which is just so gorgeous. I think, I don't know how you feel about this, that people like your dad, if you think about what is God's wish, as if we know, we have ideas. And to my mind, gratitude, and then I think, well, gratitude makes people happy. That's just A plus B equals C. Gratitude yields happiness or contentment or joy at its best. I don't think that's the end result that God wants. I think God wants generosity out of your sense of being blessed, your gratitude, and you're so happy, now do something with that. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. Yes, it makes 100% sense to me. I think my parents were big givers in that they gave a lot of themselves. They gave a lot of their time. I can only imagine, as a rabbi, you probably have a lot of people who want to speak with you about something. And my dad he wasn't a rabbi, but he had the same with his work as a pastor, where people were hurting and they needed someone to speak with. And I know that my dad always tried to make time for people. He always tried to make time for them. And sometimes, we're busy and our lives we just don't have it for that moment to give to someone else. But my dad always had time for people. He was always a giving man. I respect that about him. And I do think that to his detriment, it was a little bit at the end of his life. I think it was a little too much because he needed to take more care of himself and less of other people, but he was always giving. And so it does make 100% sense to me, because it really is sort of, I think, I'm sorry, I want to talk to you about all the things I learned as a kid. It kind of reminds me of the Shema, the second half of the Shema, right?
Yeah.
And you shall love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
Right? It's
Well, that's Leviticus, not Shema. Just to be accurate, Shema is saying love God with all your heart, your soul, your might, as you get into that
yes.
second paragraph. And then Leviticus, you get love your neighbor as yourself.
Thank you, Rabbi. Yes, love your neighbor as yourself. I think maybe that's what that is. If we see someone in need, my dad. This happened to my father when I was in my teenage years. One of his friends called him on the phone and said, they called him Sil. His name was Sylvester. And he said, Sil, I need you to pray for me. We're going to be evicted from our home. And he said, pray for us, pray that this won't happen, that we won't be evicted. And my dad said, well, he said, the gentleman said, I have a need that needs to be met. And my dad and him were talking, and as they were talking, my dad asked, well, how much financially is it that you need? He told him how much it was. And my dad said, well, I can do better than pray for you. I can meet the need. And so my dad and my mom went to their home and gave them what they needed, and they weren't evicted. And I know that's not, it's not always the case with us when it comes to helping other people or being there for other people, but it is treating your neighbor the way that you would want to be treated. And I have a great respect for my parents for how they lived their life and the examples that they gave to me, because they're very strong in my heart. And I hope if I don't do anything else with my life but try to be like my mom and my dad and try to show that kind of compassion and love and beauty and really all of they're the fruits of the spirit, essentially. But if I only do that in my life, that's good. That's happy with that.
Very good. Yeah, I think you're on that path.
Thank you.
Clearly, and you're probably going to notice the failures that we don't see, but it's the big arc, isn't it, of your life?
Yes.
And I think you're intentional and you're generous and you're bringing so much love to all aspects of life, and compassion clearly as an aspect of your work and your relationships, I'm sure, with colleagues and with people who are working with you professionally and are joining you in life in general. Who are some of the people who did that other than your parents? I mean, there have been great singers who have also been great human beings. Who are some of the people that have really inspired you by the way they lived their lives?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you. By the way they lived their lives, not just their singing. Oh, goodness. I think for that, I will always say Leontine Price, because she's one of she's just been my favorite since I was a little girl. But I admire her because of how much grace she had to have while she was singing, how much she was always so composed. If there was ever a moment that she wasn't, I've never seen it, but she was always so composed, and it seemed as though she was really singing from her heart and truly loving other people. There's actually, I love Renee Fleming. I admire the way she's done her career, but also who she is as a woman, her person. She's fantastic. I admire the singers who take their work. Michael Fabiano is another one who takes his work and he applies it to helping other people. He has a wonderful foundation called Art Smart, and he's helped so many inner city underprivileged kids receive classical music. I don't know that it's only classical music training, but music training. And he's done a fantastic job with that. I've had the pleasure of singing with Michael, and I believe we were in Los Angeles. I've sung with him 2 or 3 times now. But when I see artists, Josh Groban is another one of I went to high school with Josh Groban, and he also has a wonderful foundation of helping young musicians, not just musicians, but dancers, actors. And that kind of a thing, that giving back, always motivates me to keep going. And it's so lovely to see that, it's like, yes, we're artists, and to a degree it does have to be about us. For, we have to have an ego to do what we do.
Sure.
But when the ego is controlled, that's a good thing. And then on top of it, when we recognize, oh wow, I've achieved all of this, now I want to go and help others. That's priceless. It's wonderful.
Yeah, you remind me of a thought that I've had about a field I know very little about, which is like football and professional sports. That's just not the upbringing I had. We were listening to Puccini and Verdi and all that in my house. Not so much watching sports games. But when I hear about a football player who's also helping kids in the inner city, who's also doing all these things, my assumption, and I might be wrong, is that it's a person of faith. That didn't just grow out of their ability to do it because they have the capacity, but something in their church, synagogue, mosque, something in their spiritual life leads them to feel obligated to do more than throw a ball well. Do you think that's true? As much as we can know it?
Yes, I think as much as I can say, I think that's true. They're a person of faith. And maybe that's what encourages them to move forward with that, to help others. Because it's interesting. Not everyone believes in the idea of do unto others as you would have others do to you. Mm-hmm. Not everyone believes that. My grandmother, my grandmother would say, "Y'all treat everybody how you want them to treat you." She would always say
that
it
was
just
it,
like
word
that.
for word. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
and by the way, I think we sometimes ignore as you treat yourself, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. I think we sometimes say, oh, it's all about love the neighbor, but there's also self-love that's just as important in that equation.
Yes.
And that brings me to Leontine Price. I think it's something she said in that quote that I mentioned to you that I love that clip, maybe one of my favorite. One of the things I love about the Leontine Price clip that's on social media, people should look it up on Instagram, is not only her beauty, but the light in her eyes. And she says something like, I have been blessed with what does she say, extraordinary or beautiful voice. And you just see her reflecting on what she just says. And she says, I know that's not a humble statement. Basically, I'm paraphrasing badly. But she knows that. She knows that she has a gift.
Yes.
I think that's the difference between the term talent and gift. Gift is a reminder. This isn't just coming because I did the heavy lifting. There's a component of having been gifted with this instrument.
Yes. Yes. I agree 100%. It makes total sense to me that she, well, first it makes sense that she would call her voice beautiful because it is. I think it's the definition of beauty. But for her to refer to it as a gift is amazing because she recognizes that she didn't give it to herself.
Right.
And that's lovely. I don't know. For me, that's lovely. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to because it just got dark in here, so I have a light.
Oh, okay. I see you well, but sure, if you have a light.
Okay,
great.
Okay. As I asked my husband to bring it just because I thought maybe it was getting too dark, but okay.
No problem. What's exciting now in the season ahead and looking to the future for you?
I'm so thankful to be where I am. I've had a few people ask me if I was interested in singing different repertoire, and I love where I'm at right now. The kind of things I'm singing right now are so fun to me, and I want to get to really know them. And the only way to do that is to keep singing them. So in terms of repertoire, I like where I am, and I hope that I can stay here for a little while, healthy and singing well until it's time to move on to bigger or different repertoire. In terms of life, I'm thankful for my family, and I've been trying to take more trips to Los Angeles to see them and to just spend time with them and just be around the people that I love and enjoy, and hopefully I bring them joy and the same feeling that they bring to me.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't mind me asking about roles, so the roles that you're in, I'm aware of the
Hmm.
repertoire that you're singing right now. What is the next logical progression, or that your team is saying this is where we'd like you to start expanding your repertoire? Any of that coming up?
Not really, actually. I have been asked to sing a bit heavier Verdi, and I've turned all of it down. I've said no to everything just because it's not the right time. I always know when I should sing something because it either it doesn't feel good inside of me, or when I read about the opera I don't actually like the story. So because I have to like the story, otherwise I won't connect with the character.
Yeah,
So as of right now, everything is sort of, we're just trying to stay in this lane of like Il Trovatore, La Traviata, Louisa Miller, Aida.
yeah,
That's my Verdi right now, Verdi Requiem. And then with Puccini, it's Tosca, La Boheme, Liu in Turandot, but
yeah.
it's a pretty simple, it's not simple, but it's a pretty basic standard opera repertoire that I'm in right now, and I do enjoy it.
But you're singing new music as well, right?
I do sing new music, yes.
Yeah. And how's
Yes,
that
like
for you?
you mean like Fire Shut Up in My Bones, or
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. How was being a part of that production?
Oh my gosh. It was actually very it was a very moving and interesting time because we were just coming out of lockdown. And so we hadn't seen each other, all of the singers, we hadn't seen each other in, good grief, I want to say nearly a year.
Yeah.
And so we were sort of, convening and thrilled to see each other, but still having to stay away from each other. And I think that aspect of it, of performing under that sort of right post COVID era, was difficult for all of us, I think, in a way, just because we were artists. We're so used to being together and in each other's space and everything. And the content of the opera is very difficult. It's a very hard story to share. But it's one that's very important to share, and it's a universal story. It fits into to really anyone's walk of life, anyone's life. It was great to work with Terrence Blanchard. I would go as far as say it was just an amazing experience to work with him and to hear how to have him in the room and sing his
Yeah.
music for him. Totally daunting, like totally daunting, but also, but really a privilege at the same time. And he was so lovely because he would say things. Sorry, I could talk about Fire Shut Up My Bones all day, but he would say things to us like if someone made a mistake in the music from what was written on the score, he would say things like, "Actually, I really like that. You should keep that in
Keep
there. That's actually good. And you know what? Let me." And he'd go get a pencil and he'd go like this and write it into the music, And he gave us permission. Most opera singers don't come from a classical background. Most of us started in gospel or musical theater or choir or something else, and we made our way to opera. And he allowed us to incorporate whatever it was that was our roots. And so for me, it was gospel. And I'd say for many, but not just me, but Latanya Moore, also it was gospel and jazz for her. So we were able to bring those elements of things that we used to do into this
Yeah.
classical opera, classical music. And that's very special because of course, we have to follow the guidelines of what it means to sing traditional opera music. But in that respect, we were allowed to sort of play around a bit and do what we wanted. So it was a great
Yeah, that's
experience. Yeah.
fantastic. What an
Yeah.
amazing, liberating experience.
Yes.
And to be part of history and new production as you say, working with a living composer. Incredible.
Yes.
Do you have any of
Very
that coming
special.
up with other composers or with him?
No, not that I can think of. No.
Yeah, I love the idea, as you say. I think people think that there's a rigidity to classical music, and you and I know that there's expansiveness, there's creativity, there's so much that we can do, that you can do as an artist. And what do you say to people who have no interest in opera because they just have no exposure? How do you tell them about the thrill of singing those notes in those roles
I would
and what they might
probably,
enjoy
I'm sorry?
and what they might enjoy.
I would probably tell them to, I have told people actually, I've asked them what kind of stories do they like? Because I think that most people might not know that the stories are our stories. They're stories of a woman, somebody falling in love, and the person you're in love with doesn't love you. They love that other person, but that other person doesn't love you or them because they don't want anyone. You know, the stories are. That's why I always say I would say most of the operas are universal stories. I can put myself into
Right.
just about any character's shoes, and or life, and it would in some way pertain to mine. And I think that people don't know that the relevance of the stories, of the opera stories, resonate with us today. And they also think, oh, I get the question all the time, what do I wear? And I just tell people, come comfortably. Don't show up in like flip flop. I mean, I'm from LA, so I would go
Right.
everywhere in flip
Flip-flops and
flops and
shorts. Yeah.
jeans,
Yeah.
But honestly, if that's how you feel comfortable coming to the opera, then do that. Go to the opera in flip flops and jeans. And whatever. If somebody looks at you crazy, let them look at you crazy. Didn't you buy your ticket? They didn't buy your ticket. I get very passionate about it because I didn't grow up in a dogmatic faith with my family. It wasn't like, if you don't do this, then you're
Right.
it wasn't that. I didn't have that. And I do think that sometimes opera, classical music can lend itself to that side of this rigidity. I think that's the word, rigidity, that is very unattractive to people.
I think so as well, or at least the perception of it.
The perception of it, for sure.
Yeah.
And hopefully my generation of singers, I believe that we're cutting that down, because most of the people I sing with, they're just like me when it comes to just wanting to put on a good performance and have a spectacle for people to enjoy. Yeah. And I think one of the fascinating things about opera, I would say to someone who hasn't been, is that we're not mic'd. What you hear is coming from, if you're sitting in the top balcony and you can hear me, that's awesome. That's a great thing, because I've been working on that for a long time.
Over an orchestra and sometimes over a whole ensemble. Think about Aida. Wow.
Yes.
That we can identify a voice anywhere in the house. That's incredible, over that wall of sound.
Yes. So,
that also, it's an athletic act, isn't it? Singing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. It's muscle memory. So it's important to practice and to keep repeating what we do. And of course, to stay healthy, because no one can sing if they're not healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And healthy, not just physically.
Yes.
Healthy, able to be present, because their spiritual health, mental health, physical health allows them to be in service to the music, ultimately the composer, the audience. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
By the way, what was the first opera you saw? I think you told me, or not me, I read or heard that you were very young when you were first exposed to opera.
Yes, the first opera I saw was a concert. It was Turandot, and it was in Cleveland. I was 4 years old.
Oh.
Yes. I never know if I should say Turandot or Turandot, because I always hear I don't hear Turandot with the hard T. But the controversy of should I say the T, should I not say the T? But I always, when I was a kid, I said Turandot, so I just keep it that way now.
Yeah, I don't think anybody will be offended. So do you any idea who was singing in those days in Cleveland?
I don't. What my mother has a program somewhere in storage, as she says, but she said that it might have been, I want to say, a traveling tour from the Met is what we think it was at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
And what would you say are entry point operas for friends of yours? Somebody says, I don't know what to see. What won't scare me away?
Definitely La Boheme. Yeah. Definitely La Boheme. It's an easy story to follow. It's not very long, not a long night at all. And I think everyone can relate to those characters. It's very, I would say, out of everything that I've sung, that opera is probably the most, I think the most relatable when it comes to human relationships. The other one would probably be Carmen, because the music is so famous. Everyone knows the Habanera and the Toreador song, and there's a few other pieces. That's the overture. So people know those songs, and that's one of the interesting things when it comes to classical music, is when someone hears something that they recognize, they often feel like, oh, I'm a part of this. I can participate in this.
That's a way in.
And so having music in the opera that one has heard before, even if they've never been to an opera, allows them to feel like they're a part of it, I think. So I would say Carmen and La Boheme.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I would think as well. Boheme and Carmen, because aside from, maybe you said this as well, they're so relatable as stories. My son was always interested in opera, and obviously the kids were really exposed to growing up. My daughter wasn't interested until we played the Salzburg La Traviata with, I'm blanking. I remember Thomas Hampson and Anna Netrebko
and Rolando Villazon.
Yeah. And my daughter was mesmerized, just mesmerized.
Great.
And sometimes I test her. I just play it in the background at home, and she goes, "Oh, Dad, that's Traviata." I go, "Oh, okay." Some inclination, but also a connection. But the production was so beautiful. Mm-hmm. So that was gorgeous. And then ultimately what you end up seeing are people like you who are vulnerable, who are trying to create love in their lives and relationship, all simple human stuff.
I like that, simple human stuff. It's true. Yes. And very relatable, because it happens to all of us.
Yeah, hopefully not the endings of some of those operas.
Not the endings, no. Hopefully it's just the falling in love, or the emotional aspect of it. I think happens to everyone. You can see, I was actually saying this to a friend about Aida, that because in Aida, Amneris is in love with Radames, but Radames is in love with Aida. And I said, it's funny because for most of my life, I'm Amneris. I would like somebody and they would like someone else. And I said, so that really resonates with me. And her emotions throughout the evening, she's just all sort of, everything happens. She's extremely happy when her father says, this is Amneris, when her father says that she's going to marry Radames. And then she feels like she has this revenge on Aida, but then she's very sad at the end, of course, when she's the reason why he essentially gets the death penalty is because of her jealousy. And, she's a lot, but there's a lot of her that I have seen in myself. There's also a lot, of course, in Aida that I've seen in myself. So I think that people might not know that it's relatable. It's like watching a film just live and a little bit longer in a different language.
And with gorgeous, gorgeous music.
Yes, with gorgeous
and
music.
my kids would say, why do they keep repeating themselves? And the other question they'd ask about opera was, Dad, how long does it take to die? The guy's still singing. I go, yeah, that's opera. Angel, I want to wrap up. I want to make sure that there's nothing that you want to say that you haven't said, because that's important. And obviously to thank you very much.
Oh, I'm just really honored to spend the time with you. Thank you very much for asking me to be on your podcast. And I hope I didn't say anything that was too, I don't know, strange or.
You didn't. You didn't. And you said something earlier. I just want to say, correct you if you don't mind. You said, I'm not that articulate or eloquent.
Oh.
Neither is true. You're absolutely articulate and eloquent, and a beautiful human being and a beautiful artist. And it's a real honor to share this hour with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciated that. Thank you.
And Shabbat Shalom.
And Shabbat Shalom. Yes.
This season is produced and edited by Jonah Lee Paz. Content editing by Bronwyn Lee Paz. Musical theme by Amotz Plesner. Logo art by Janice Rudnitsky. Graphic design by Gusta Lee Paz. Social media management by Morgan Shanahan and Sophie Bergeron. The Meaning Mindset with Rabbi Ron is hosted by Rabbi Ron Lee Paz. Find us wherever you find your podcasts.